to order. Can we have the roll call? Oh, I'm sorry. One thing. I have to read this first. In accordance with the Governor's disaster declaration and suspension of certain aspects of the Open Meetings Act, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom. The public was invited to provide input via email before the meeting. The Zoom information was published with the agenda so members of the public may attend the meeting virtually and provide input. Okay, now we can go ahead with roll call.
I was wondering if we could delay roll call. It seems like Heather Ann hasn't gotten on yet, and perhaps we can have her do it when she comes back on.
Okay, well, the problem there is that the next thing is to approve the minutes, and I need the roll call for that too. I
see. Well, I don't, oh, here's Jared. And there you are, Jared.
Sorry for being late.
I think with Jared you have quorum,
no
so
problem. Maybe
we can go ahead and attempt to take roll. So I'm going to do it off the top of my head. Let's go first. Pat Salmon. Are you present?
Here.
Barbara Headland. Barbara, can you, oh, sorry.
I'm present.
Gonzalo Pinilla.
Here.
Frank Modica. He said here, but he's muted. Sorry, Frank. Jared Miller.
I'm here.
Janelle Ulcherton.
I'm here.
Courtney Becks appears to be absent. And Angela Williams appears to be absent. I do want to also note that Stacy Robinson recently returned to town and plans to re-enter the commission and reassume his seat that's been vacant for a while. I did send him the invitation to tonight's meeting, but it appears right now that he is absent. I don't know for certain of his intention to have attended this meeting, but he certainly may be at our next one. And
okay, that's good to hear.
I think I got everybody. Okay.
Okay, we have quorum. So next up is approval of the minutes of the June 9th, 2020 meeting. I have to do this a little differently because evidently, according to the rules, we have to do this vote by roll call. So first of all, did anybody have any comments or changes for the minutes?
I didn't, but I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote then. Who starts? Barbara?
I approve.
Are you aye or nay?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Jared?
Vote to approve.
Help me, Rachel. I don't know everybody else's name off the top of my head.
Excuse me, I can see everyone. So Gonzalo?
I approve.
Frank?
Yes.
Janelle?
I approve.
And I believe that's everyone on our call right now.
Okay.
So with that, the motion passes.
Okay, very good. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Okay, and is there anybody from the public who wishes to address the commission?
Doesn't appear so.
Okay, Rachel, let's go ahead with the staff report then.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and it's great to see all your faces. I'm going to share screen because I'm going to share the presentation slides with you. So let me know that you can see this okay. And I'm just going to real quickly get it to start from the beginning here. All right, so this is your July 2020 staff report. Got a lot of updates for you today. We had a busy month, even in quarantine. Got a lot going on. First and foremost, I just want to take some time to talk about how COVID-19 and the public health crisis continues to impact our work and how we're sort of working around that constraint right now. We have, for the majorities, continued to suspend our in-person events and programs. The only reason in your report I added the words majority is because we recently had an unveiling that I'll talk about in a moment of a mural, and we did do a ribbon cutting from a social distance with a small group of people who came out for that. But with the exception of that program, all other of our programs continue to be virtual at this time. We are following closely the guidelines set forth in the Illinois Phase 5 reopening plan and consulting with public health on programs. Some events are being held virtually, and Urbana Arts and Culture staff do continue to work from home. And we're also working to share relief information, resources for local artists, and continue our various initiatives as much as we can. I've enjoyed that this time of constraint in some ways has also allowed new partnerships to bloom, which we'll talk more about in a moment. I want to also share that we've had a number of staffing changes at the City of Urbana. Many of you may have heard that Brandon Boy's Economic Development Manager was not reappointed, so he's no longer at the City of Urbana. And joining us today on the call is Stephanie McMahon, who is now stepping into somewhat of the supervisory and managerial duties that were formerly held by Brandon. So she's also a great contact for the economic development side of what we do. I want to also take a moment to talk about some of the ways in which our office continues to operate. So as I said, we are largely working from home remotely with minor visits to the office as needed. The City of Urbana offices were set to open, but due to spiking cases, we've actually delayed that reopening. So we continue to be closed to the public or sort of partially open. We have essential services still in operation. And we had a couple of exciting developments on our side of things. We had one high school student hired through the Care for You program grant and 3 high school students hired through the Illinois Arts Council Summer Youth Employment Grant we received. You may have remembered me talking about hiring 2 high school students through that grant, but we actually were able to hire 3 based in the time period that we ended up hiring them in. There was some delays with the hiring process, but that made it so that we actually could feasibly hire 3 on the same grant. We also have 16 new University of Illinois student interns through the We See You program. These are University of Illinois students working with us through this summer through a program developed by, I think, 6 or 7 university units that came together to create student opportunities for supporting organizations through this time of COVID-19. So they're going to be working this summer, and there's still conversations in that program of continuing this program into the fall, and it's looking very possible. So it may be that some of our students through that program actually continue to work with us well into the school year. I want to take a moment now to actually introduce some of these students, they are here on the call, a couple of them, and I want to invite them to say hello when I'm done, just really briefly so you can see their faces. But the first person I want to introduce comes to us through the Care for You program, and this is a work program that is in collaboration with the Illinois State University and Urbana School District. And students gain job skills training, financial management training, all kinds of training in advance of coming and doing internships and placements all over the city. We've enjoyed a partnership with this organization now and this program for I think over 2 years at this point, and we've had 3 or 4 interns through the program. So our new student is Rima Salem. Rima was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She moved to Urbana 2 years ago. She speaks 4 languages, Lingala, French, English, and some Spanish. She's a rising junior at Urbana High School, where her favorite subjects are French, math, science, and the arts. She plays on the UHS soccer team and dreams of becoming an award-winning performance artist, sharing her gifts as singing, dancing, and acting. One day she hopes to enter the healthcare field, working particularly in therapy or public health. And she was a featured performer of Afro dance for the Black History Month programming at Urbana High School this past year. So I'll let them kind of pop on and introduce themselves at the end of all the introductions if we can do that. But welcome to Rima. I want to also introduce you to the 3 students that were hired through our Illinois Arts Council Summer Youth Employment Grant. The first of which is Celia Barberi. She is a rising junior at Urbana High School, where she serves as team captain of the UHS cross country team. She's passionate about all kinds of arts and cultural phenomena and has particular interest in literature, writing, and archival work. Her work has appeared in numerous local exhibitions, including the Eric Show by 40 North and the Town and Country Amateur Art Show. She's interested in arts and cultural event coordinating, and one of her proudest moments was organizing events such as the Me Too service organized for her church community. When she's not cooking, making art, or running, she's reading the latest in a string of novels that catch her eye. Next up is Madeline Molina. Madeline Molina is a recent homeschool high school graduate. She plans on studying art history and museum studies to pursue a career in art education. Her previous gallery and museum work experience includes the Garrett's Gallery at Parkland College, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and Portland Children's Museum. Madeline has served on the Houston Arts New Generation Collective Teen Leadership Council, and she created work that was selected for the Shapeshifters exhibition at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston, which involved robotics, and I think we should totally ask her more about. She is passionate about integrating arts in the community, especially bringing underrepresented groups to the spotlight of the art world. She loves painting, backpacking, and social activism. And next is Max Potask. He's a rising senior at Urbana High School. Max is an Urbana native and has worked as a junior counselor and camp leader at summer camps throughout the Urbana Park District. He currently serves as the drum major of the Tiger Marching Band at Urbana High School. Max is passionate about musical and visual arts and hopes one day to find a career in filmmaking or editing. He's worked as a multimedia content creator and projectionist for UHS Theater Troupe, making videos, logos, and pictures to enhance productions. The most recent production he worked on, The Theory of Relativity, many of you may have heard, was selected for performance at the International Thespian Festival. So those are our students right now that come specifically from the Illinois Arts Council grant. And I believe these are also the students that have joined us today. I'm going to stop screen share just for a moment. And is it possible that Rima, Madeline, and Celia, who are here joining us this evening, might want to say a quick hello? And I think we'd have to allow them to. Oh, there's Celia.
Hi, I'm Celia.
Here's Madeline, and I see Rima.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, Rima.
Hi.
And it looks like maybe Max wasn't able to join us today, but these are our 4 high school students working with us this summer. High school students, these are our wonderful arts and culture commissioners, and Stephanie McMahon, raise your hand, Steph, who works as our economic development coordinator supervisor. And I'm really excited that all of you are able to meet everyone here for this meeting. I'm going to continue on and introduce the CU scholars, but I have informed these 4 that at the end of the internship, one of the things I like to do is have them give you a brief presentation about their work, what they've accomplished during their internship. So you will see their faces again in more of a presentation mode where they get to actually talk a lot more at you about what they've accomplished. But the 4 of them started this a week ago, basically, and they really hit the ground running. They have a whole list of tasks they've been working through, and I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. So I want to say thank you to Madeline, Celia, and Rima for joining us today. You're not obligated to stay, but of course I would love it if you did. And at this point, we could probably go ahead and mute them again, unless you have something else you want to add. Thank you, guys. I'm going to share my screen again just to continue going on with the presentation. All right. So, oh, hold on one second. Seems I've shared something not moving forward. So let's do this. Okay. So next up, I want to talk to you just briefly about the WeCU program. This has been a wonderful way for us to continue to expand the scope of our work. And, you know, in full disclosure, I come from working with students for the last 10 years. It's a passion of mine to cultivate support for the next generation, to provide some mentorship, and to also have our program really serve the community in this way. So I have loved signing up the Arts and Culture program to participate in some of the same programs I participated in back in my old position before coming to join the City of Urbana staff. WeCU is a program that was sort of born partially from the Community Learning Lab. As you know, I've spoken a bit about the Community Learning Lab at the University of Illinois as a service placement program. It's really, really wonderful. So I just wanted to say that this comes a little bit from that. We have 16 students working with us right now. And some of you may have heard this from me already, but it was, and the students know this, but it was a kind of comedy of errors. I actually told Community Learning Lab in the WeCU program I was interested in what I thought I made clear was 4 students. And they sent me 4 groups of students, which is why we have a really large number of students working with us. They were really accommodating when we figured out we misunderstood each other. And I've actually gotten quite a wonderful amount of support from them for helping get these students acclimated and onboarded so they can do some work. And they're actually working quite well on a wide variety of things. But let me introduce you to their faces really quick. We've got Portia Agash, who's a doctoral student in microbiology. Andrew White, who's a junior in global studies, Vanessa Chang, who's a senior in political science, and Jaren Zhang, who's a graduate student in molecular and integrative physiology. We also have Isabel Gleason, who's a junior in music education, Sophia Ebel, who's a junior in comparative literature and German, Ishan Singh Sidhu, which is a junior in finance, Natalie Breddy, who's a senior in art education and painting. We have Shubika Argwal, who's a graduate student in urban planning, Charlotte Chu, who's a senior in accountancy and information systems, Lydia Roberts, who's a sophomore in architecture, Lexi Freeman, who's a junior in, and I'm sorry, I forgot to put her major in, Abby Kabush, who's a junior in bioengineering, Sherry Zhang, who's a junior in psychology and media and cinema studies, Abby Artiston, who's a junior in marketing and operations management, and Debo Yang, who's a sophomore in chemistry. So as you can see, we have a wide range of underclassmen as well as students who are in their graduate or doctoral programs. So far, these students have been doing quite a lot of interesting work. We have students who are working with me on a project to cold call local artists and arts agencies to get a sense of how well they're getting information about relief programs and making sure that they're aware of the COVID-19 relief programs still available to them. We're getting some assessment done on what the needs are arising in our arts community. We're working a lot on marketing projects, contact lists for upcoming projects that we're doing, all kinds of web development things and outreach efforts. And then we have a whole group that signed up with the intention to support translation work. So we've also got a lot of our documents being translated right now into Spanish, French, and Mandarin, which has been really good for our program in terms of just better outreach. But that's really, I'm probably not going to spend any longer on this today, but I would love to, create opportunities of mentorship for these students too. So if you're somebody as a commissioner who would be interested in maybe talking one-on-one to students who are interested, I think one thing that would be really fun to do would be to set up a couple of instances where our commissioners could have a one-on-one meeting, or even two of our commissioners at a time or something could Zoom and have a little discussion of what it's like to be an arts and culture commissioner, so they can learn a little bit more about that experience. I do have the college students set up to do a mentorship hour with the high school students, where they're going to be able to tell them a little bit about what to expect when applying for college, how they're applying some of the things that they're doing in college to the interests that they have. And that's something that I'm looking forward to too. So those opportunities to kind of close the loop of mentorship and support and just build better community for the program is something I feel pretty strongly about. And if you're interested in supporting these efforts as a commissioner, I really invite you to let me know. But let's get into updates and current projects. So as you know, the Urbana Arts and Culture Program have 38 art grant projects, and many of whom have been struggling with the realities of COVID-19 and trying to make sense of how to move forward with their grant projects. You are aware that our previous conversation included developing some guidelines with your input as arts commissioners for particularly the Tier 3 category of grants. That guidance was approved. It has been since given out to the arts grantees in Tier 3. They also were given 2 opportunities to give input and feedback, and it seems that the guidance is going to work for everyone. Similarly, with the exception of the opportunity to defer grant monies, which I think at this point there's no organization that is going to go that direction, the options that were presented to them are also available for tiers 1 and 2 as guidance. So I did hold a meeting where I explained the guidance. I made sure everybody had a copy. With Heather Ann's help, we got that out to all of our grantees to make sure that they had it in their email as well. And we went over any questions that they had. It seems that this time, I'm going to try to offer another one because not everyone could attend, but at this time it seems everyone has pretty much indicated to me that they feel they have a way forward. I've gotten a lot of emails with revised proposals that are for my approval, and so far everything's looking good. The real emphasis we gave was that, when we move things to virtual formats or go online, we really want to make sure that we retain that emphasis on Urbana, and we really do what we can to continue to partner in the ways that we had set out to in the original proposal with local venues, local businesses, et cetera. And so we've been working a lot to kind of brainstorm around individual projects, and that one-on-one support for grantees is going to continue. Another project that I'm excited about is, you may recall, the Art in the Time of Quarantine youth art exhibit, which was a collaboration between Chambana Moms, Cranard Art Museum, Coop Adventure Play, and Museum of the Grand Prairie. Well, we were really excited about how that culminated in a wonderful digital art exhibit with students participating from all over Champaign County through submitting art. And in the wake of lots of civil unrest and real attention being given in the community to systemic racism, to its intersections, to talking about, you know, this is a hard time for everyone, but it's especially hard when we're already faced with so many other instances of oppression and other things, we decided that this is a great opportunity for us to come together again and launch a second youth art exhibit that would focus more on the experiences of teens. But in particular, we wanted to acknowledge that teens have been very much at the forefront of many of our social movements going on. Teens are really creative and visionary, and we also know that artists are uniquely positioned to do the imagining and the creativity necessary for thinking about alternatives to the way the world is now, right? And so thinking about what the world could become. So with that in mind, we're kind of percolating on an idea to collaborate together on something we hope to call like Artists Reimagine the World as a teen art exhibition. And every partner, we're bringing in a lot of new partners, community organizations, in particular youth organizations, and talking a lot about what exhibition opportunities we could build of the work that would be submitted. We're hoping to get more than just visual art this time around and maybe expand to writing, to poetry, to dance, performance, anything that can be taken a photo of, a video of, or have be documented in some way. Cranard's exploring an in-person exhibition opportunity. We're exploring digital opportunities of display, but there's going to be a lot built into a program like this that really gives teens that opportunity to shine and to have their voices take the center stage. But that's another one that just is coming together with dozens of partners and is really exciting. I think could have good impact in our community. I want to also introduce another wonderful emerging opportunity that came together. I mentioned it a little last month as kind of an initial idea. A lot has come together since we've seen each other last. So we launched an open call for proposals for what we ended up calling the Great Art Doors. This is a collaboration between 40 North, Spurlock Museum, the Park Districts of Urbana and Champaign, and our program. What it is offering selected local artists stipends to create outdoor art installations in several Champaign and Urbana parks and 2 prominent community gardens, Learman Neighborhood Community Garden and Randolph Street Community Garden in Champaign. So both Champaign and Urbana have 4 neighborhood parks selected each, and they have 1 community garden. This project is really designed to support local artists with a tangible paid opportunity. They will get a $1,000 honorarium, and to also make an opportunity for a neighborhood park or a community garden to get an interactive piece of art. We've really prioritized working with underserved areas of the neighborhoods and ensuring accessibility. So we gave a set of guidance that we're inviting people to consider when they submit proposals that really kind of further inclusive and diverse representations in the arts. Artists in Champaign County are asked to submit a proposal by July 15th. You'll note that's tomorrow. I have been in some initial conversations today, and it's looking likely we will extend that deadline. You'll see announcements about that. Selected artists will be then invited to create the work and install by August 24th. Selected artworks will be installed through November 20th, and this is being installed with the help of the park districts. Another element of the Great Art Doors is a community outdoor gallery. So community members are encouraged to transform windows, balconies, porches, yards, and neighborhoods with art, and then take photos of them, hashtag them CU Art Doors, and it'll all be part of a kind of basically Champaign-Urbana cities-wide celebration of the arts called the Great Art Doors. So we're really excited about that. You can see here the list of parks that we have in your staff report, which include Chief Schumacher Park, Victory Park, Weaver Park, Southridge Park, and Learman Neighborhood Community Garden. And we are hopeful that we'll also have the community gardens have some specific role in selecting the pieces that go there. So we're really excited about that. Next, I want to talk about Art Inspired, which is, again, I mentioned it in previous instances, but these are some of our upcoming ones, so I won't actually linger on this slide too much, lest people watching see them come out before they truly get posted. But these are an opportunity for artists to be highlighted through social media with the Urbana Free Library and the Arts and Culture program. And you'll see here the artist gets a picture of themselves, their artwork, and a quote about how they find inspiration, as well as links and all kinds of things to their artwork on the post itself. But this is an effort to really encourage people to buy local, to highlight our local artists. Next, I want to talk about some of the projects of Urbana Poet Laureate Will Rieger. And let me begin first by saying that we have officially extended the tenure of Will Rieger because we have been obviously faced with some disruptions in his work. And we decided that we have the budget and the ability to extend his proposed term another 4 months. So he's getting a small honorarium. He's able to continue for another 4 months. So he'll go through the end of October to see some of these projects to their fruition. We have, first and foremost, I want to give an obvious shout out to Frank Modica, because the first thing I want to talk about is Poets on a Park Bench. And the most recent episode, which just aired, featured our very own Frank. It was actually the first in what we're now calling Poets in a Pandemic. And the fun fact here is that you may have heard me say that Frank's initial interview, which this photo is from, or this footage is represented by, was interrupted by the UHS marching band, which was very funny. Frank was really trying to complete his interview while the marching band did a song every few minutes very loudly. So what happened was this actually became the perfect episode for a transition into Poets in a Pandemic, because we had some salvageable footage from the first iteration, and they filmed the second half on Zoom. So it's a wonderful episode. If you haven't seen it, I found it to be personally incredibly touching. I did not have a dry eye watching that video, and I really encourage you all to check it out. It's pretty phenomenal, and I loved hearing more about your work, Frank. We have a number of them coming out now, about 4 more, that will be part of the Poets on a Park Bench / Poets in a Pandemic series. But that's been a really wonderful TV series, and Frank and Will and I are talking about the possibility of more of a Zoom-based like screening of the Poets on a Park Bench episode, and then followed by a Q&A with the poets, so people could learn more about poets like Frank and how they do their work, what inspires them, what their writing process is, everything like that. Poems on Glass has been officially kicked off. We've got our first installation we'll talk about in a minute, but Poems on Glass has been wonderful. We're starting to get notice out to the poets who applied. So if a poet who applied is listening to this recording, don't be alarmed. You're going to get information soon, if you haven't already, about whether or not your poem was selected. And then we're trying to do some level of small ribbon cuttings, very small gathering, less than, everyone being more than 6 feet apart, all of that sort of thing. But we really are wanting to kind of finalize this program, and it's been wonderful. We had great submissions to our first iteration of Poems on Glass. And the intention is that we're going to put all submissions in some sort of small publication, some sort of little zine or something that would be able to be distributed in the community. Will Rieger continues to write people poems on request. So if anyone in the community, anyone at all, would like a poem written for them, this is your chance. And I encourage you to email him to request yours. We've been sharing this information around, and I think he's gotten a lot more requests in recent days. Postcard Poetry Project is one that really was kind of put on hold. We had an exhibit planned and a teen poetry slam for June. Obviously, those 2 events were canceled. Our in-person exhibit was canceled. But one wonderful thing that's emerged is a project that we're calling Urbana Poetry Prose Summer Initiative. The E in prose is in parentheses, so it has sort of a double meaning. But we're excited about collaborating, particularly with the Park District. So Urbana Park District program person, Nikki Hosman, approached me about collaborating on poetry. And I said, that's wonderful. I have a bunch of poetry projects with the Poet Laureate that actually could use some support. And she had some great ideas. So we were able to kind of bring all of that together under this umbrella initiative, where we will be offering a number of workshops in collaboration with the Urbana Free Library, Urbana Park District, and the Arts Program. We have the Kids Workshop. We are planning 4 teen workshops, and then we're planning an adult workshop. And all of them together will present opportunities for the poet laureate and some guest poets to teach about the writing of poetry. We wanted to particularly encourage teens because a lot of our programs in poetry so far have been for largely attended by adult poets or benefited adult poets or established poets. And we wanted to encourage some emerging poets. So we've got a few more of the workshops focused on teens. But what's exciting is that the Park District is also going to assist us in creating a Splash website page that will actually form the Postcard Poetry Project as a digital display. And that will be wonderful. And all of the workshops that will be part of this series will also be opportunities for people to publish. So we'll be sharing all the different ways that we're helping people publish in Urbana, and Postcard Poetry Project will be one of those places. Connected to that, we really kick it off with the Kids Poetry Workshop. You heard me mention this at last meeting. We ended up needing to cancel it due to some health concerns that came up, and we are able to be back in business and doing it this Sunday. So it worked out quite well for it to be part of this overarching initiative then. So it'll be this Sunday, the 19th at 3 p.m. on Zoom. All right, so one of the most exciting things that's happened most recently was our unveiling of the Murals on Glass selection In the Sunshine by Black Mal, which is Kamal Grantham and Stacy Robinson collaborating. This was installed in the Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office front windows at 205 West Green Street, and was unveiled during an event held by community members called Urbana Amble, which was a garden and art tour that neighbors organized themselves, and Township was actually on the map, as was our mural unveiling as part of a stop on a socially distanced garden tour. So we had a brief ribbon cutting, and I wanted to share some of the words about In the Sunshine that were shared by the artist. So In the Sunshine is a mixed media piece that in the artist's words invites you to imagine Black kids swimming in a golden infinity of uninterrupted time. Murals on Glass is organized and funded by our program and is an initiative to feature local artworks on downtown Urbana windows. This was our major selection this year for Murals on Glass, and then we are also going to be unveiling some of our utility box murals. There is a short recap video that I would like to play for you all right now. And it really shares a little bit about that ribbon cutting, because I know with the social distance aspect of what we're up to, we didn't really have the opportunity for everyone to be there, and I want to make sure that you feel like you were there. Are you all able to see this video? Excellent. And
Yes.
Jason, you might need to let me know if for any reason we don't have sound. Can you see that? Are we able to hear it?
Rachel, I think what you'll need to do is stop sharing your screen and then reshare it. And when you go to reshare it, there should be a little check mark to enable
I
the
see
audio.
share computer sound. Yep, okay, got it. Very good, thank you. Okay. All right, here it is, everyone.
Welcome to Cunningham Township. Cunningham Township is neighbors helping neighbors. We are funded by Urbana residents, and we basically are an insurance policy for those who run into problems, get behind on rent. We are here to help, and we provide a bridge support for folks who are facing eviction, folks who are homeless trying to get into housing, and also those who are temporarily unemployed or dealing with a disability and are applying for disability. So last year, we helped 1 in 40 Urbana residents. And thank you so much for gracing the front of the township. 3, 2, 1.
We're out here today celebrating the unveiling of our latest edition of Murals on Glass. Murals on Glass is an initiative through our program to put murals on downtown windows, and these are digital images printed on adhesive vinyl. They stay for a period of 2 years, but the secret is we actually keep them much longer as well, as long as the artist is willing. So we have these works up, and they are wonderful. We have a whole listing around town. You can find it on our website at urbanaillinois.us/muralsonglass. And that's where you can find a listing of all the different murals. What's really exciting today is, apart from our mural In the Sunshine by Kamal Grantham and Stacy Robinson that was installed, we also unveiled a new initiative called Poems on Glass. This is a complimentary program that came directly from the mind of the arts and from the new poet laureate, our inaugural poet laureate, Will Rieger, and it invited an area poet to interpret the mural. So we also have a poem by Janelle Davenport Pleasure that appears right next to the mural here at Cunningham Township.
The poem is called "If the Sky Had Eyes." If the sky had eyes, would it see the wealth of love and joy placed at its feet? Would it hear the laughter of its children and sing? Would it taste the southern glass of fresh lemonade and quench its thirst? Would it smell the ocean's depths? Would it touch your soul? I was wondering what would happen if you and the sky collided. I mean, met face to face and literally collided. Eye to eye, nose to nose, lip to lip. Would you kiss it? Not just in the physical realm, but among the stars. Would your souls intertwine and dance for the universe? I bet if you did, you would see the future and smile.
I like the idea of poetry being made public in a different way than through books or readings or something like that. It's more of a permanent kind of celebration of poetry, and the coupling of poetry and art brings poetry closer to the community's dialogue, if you will.
So I do a little collaging on the side, mostly for fun, because I just like art and visuals. And so I had a collection of some pieces that I was working on, and when I met Stacy, who does art for real, and I just shared it with him. I'm like, I got a couple of things, and he liked what I did, and so I shared a number of pieces with him, and we decided to collaborate. So I'm not sure I had a particular vision. I was just having fun, and I think Stacy saw the bigger picture.
The children playing and having fun, but then it also had a darker side, which was, the background where it had the city, and it looked like the sky was coming down, and that's kind of how our society feels right now, and I think children shouldn't have to focus on that. So the fact that was in the background and the kids were in front having fun, that should be our focus, continue to have fun, continue to push forward, continue to enjoy life despite the craziness behind you. So that's what inspired me to write The Sky Had Eyes.
Originally we made 9 pieces, a total of 9 pieces, and we're working on our next series. So stay tuned for that, because those will be coming before winter.
My presentation again. Sorry for all the screen sharing. Let me just share that one more time. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay. So again, I'm just very excited to have our latest Murals on Glass feature. I hope that video helped you feel a sense of what it was like to be at that ribbon cutting, which was really phenomenal. And I mean, apart from just not seeing humans enough over the past few months, it was really wonderful to see the small group of people that were able to attend, and to see the first iteration of Poems on Glass as well. I want to move on to talking about the Urbana Sculpture projects. Even though our Murals on Glass has been a sort of a slow-moving thing with the winter months hitting, and then as soon as spring came around, us going into shelter in place, so we've had quite a few delays this year with the mural unveilings. We are at the same time entering what is usually a sculpture year, and so commissioners received an email from me just asking a little bit for you to think about the sculptures with me. I did share with you the full presentation of Public Art League's sculpture, and I didn't hear back from all the commissioners, so I'm not going to go really deeply into this today. I want to simply say that the Public Art League had a big unveiling online this time of their 2020 class of murals. I did serve on the jury, and I really enjoy this experience, and obviously we have really some wonderfully celebrated sculptures. My question to commissioners was to talk a little bit about, how you would like to pursue sculptures this year, and if there are sculptures that you see that you're particularly excited about in the PowerPoint that I sent, that is their unveiling for 2020, And what I'd like to do is invite you to respond to that email if you haven't yet, and maybe we can pick up with this conversation next meeting and decide how we want to move forward on sculptures this year. Similarly, when we do install them, we'll have probably a small and even maybe partially virtual ribbon cutting for them. But we work with the Public Art League to select, and we work with our Public Works Department to install those sculptures with the help of the artist. And last but not least, I want to focus on just COVID-19 artist resources. So I had shared that we are continuing to promote the relief programs. A lot of the National Endowment of the Arts and the National Endowment of the Humanities funding has really had gone out, and we're awaiting whether or not we had additional monies coming from the federal government to put out. One deadline that I know about is July 22nd for I think it's now 4th round of artistrelief.org funding. And what we're trying to do is just keep an eye. This is a wonderful resource here through Americans for the Arts. They have a relief guide that they're trying to update. And currently I have some of our WeCU interns double checking the City of Urbana's like business resource page, particularly the parts about the arts, to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information on our website. So my plan is to get our website very up-to-date this week, and we'll continue to post through social media. I've been sharing a lot on social media, and then we're doing those cold calls to artists. So artists are going to also get some direct conversations from us about, what upcoming relief programs there are. And we just kind of want to assess too, like, how many people have received funding, who have applied, and really understanding how it's impacted our community and what needs remain. So that's kind of what's going on there. I encourage you, if you're interested in sharing with the arts community that you all belong to, each of you, to really share. Perhaps this guide is a great place. It really divides things by state, federal, and also private dollars to see some of the things, and it does divide things also by the type of art and the area that one's from. So there's regional opportunities, there's things that are just for theater people or just for musicians, and this is a great guide because it's really comprehensive. And that's really the end of my presentation for today. Do you have any questions for me or comments? We got a lot of new programs going on, and I think what I'm most excited about is that while we're in this constrained time, so many partnerships are emerging in quickly and in ways that maybe are not always as easy to partner with. I'm really delighted that we have not one but two partnerships right now that represent collaboration between the two cities and the university. And that's just wonderful for us, and that every partner involved is excited. And I didn't make this clear, but the Great Art Doors in particular is funded entirely by Spurlock Museum. So Spurlock had decided to pledge $10,000 to support installations in the two cities of Urbana and Champaign, and we were able to pull together 40 North, the arts program, and the two park districts to really help make that happen. But those kinds of partnerships, I think, are ones that really, demonstrate that the Urbana Arts and Culture program continues to really be, a deep part of the fabric of the arts community. And, the partnerships that we see emerging, I think, are where we need to be as a Twin Cities, and as a place that, has a big university here. Those collaborations that really show those three, entities working together are really at the heart of what I like to see the arts program doing.
Rachel, I'll just say you've done an amazing job keeping the community engaged and doing projects at a time when it was really, really challenging, and being prepared in the video and everything you did today, just very nice work.
Thank you.
Rachel, could you resend that email with the PowerPoint about the sculpture?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Rachel, I wanted to ask for any clarification you could give for Tier 1 and Tier 2 grantees.
Yes.
I've spoken with a couple of people who were under the impression that we weren't going to be offering extensions to any of them or any of the same options we offered to Tier 3 folks. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but there were some questions with a couple of recipients that I spoke to recently. So I'm just curious what's going on with that.
Of course, and thank you for asking, because I really also rely on all of you to be ambassadors of information. So our grantees have received an email, each and every one of them, sharing the new guidance and indicating that it is both applicable to Tier 3 and other than an option in Tier 3 that so far no one's using, which is to defer to the next fiscal year. All of those options are also available to Tiers 1 and 2, so the exact same guidance applies sans that particular thing that so far no one's using. So you can almost consider it like not part of the guidance. But what's wonderful is that we have been able to offer a couple of, well, so far one Zoom-based thing for folks to come and hear direct from me, ask questions, get clarification. So we did have a number of attendees. I have 2019 folks who are still wrapping things up because COVID created some disruption there. And then of course we have the whole group of 2020 grantees. So all of them have received an email. That doesn't mean that everyone's seen it, and it's completely reasonable that they're confused. So what I want to communicate to you all is the guidance does apply. I'm going to actually add that guidance on our website because that's one thing I haven't done yet, but they should check their emails if they are the contact person for the grant. Now, every once in a while, the person who wrote the grant is collaborating with someone else, and that person's email is not the contact person. So we also sometimes go through to clean up and make sure just everyone gets the information. But that's something that I encourage that person to do, or anyone who has questions, just check their email. We'll go ahead and as a courtesy, like resend, and I'll put it on the website. And what we're gonna do is offer another kind of Q&A, just so that I'm giving another opportunity for them to get any questions clarified, because I think that has helped. A lot of times people haven't even thought about a question until they hear someone else say it. And so that environment's been one that's been pretty good. But right now, what we're really allowing people to do is to do that virtual thing, to move forward in ways that are compliant, obviously with the phase plan. We encourage working directly with the public health department. All of that guidance that you guys helped co-create, that's really what we accepted. And that was also, put under the eyes of the mayor and the city administrator. Like, everyone's on the same page, at least with that for now.
Okay, thanks. I'll relay those messages. I've talked to a couple people who were a little confused about it, and I thought that we were on that page about 1 and 2 getting the same treatment that 3 had, but some people had a missed message. So thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'll just add, this guidance is in a way not so novel. We already allow for extensions. During the orientation, I make that very clear that, we err on the side of flexibility and accommodation. We understand life happens. We've had people had to give up grants because they had a death in the family and they couldn't carry out a project. We've had people, have to forfeit grants for other very reasonable circumstances. So there's always the option of forfeiture, and there's a way to forfeit without penalty depending on circumstance. And then of course there's kind of forfeiting with the penalty. And the real penalty is that we note, why somebody has forfeited, and then we just close that when they apply in the future. But the other thing is extensions are usually granted with reasonable circumstances, and this is a very reasonable circumstance. So we're usually pretty accommodating, and what I like to do is anytime somebody asks for an extension, which they have to do in writing to me, is I really try to then sit down with them, because they know they need an extension, but they might not have a plan for how they're really going to complete it. They just know they can't complete it right now. And so I like to give them that time and attention of really helping them think through, what do you need to complete this grant? So in other words, encourage everyone to just contact me directly. I really like to offer them that one-on-one support where I can. And we are trying to create as many conditions as we can to accommodate the unusual circumstance that we're all in. Thanks. Any other questions about the report? Just lots of shout outs to Frank Modica. I think you all should go watch the Poets in a Pandemic episode and then show all your friends, because it is super sweet. And it is airing on UPTV. I can't remember what time, but it's airing on UPTV kind of repetitively.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Rachel, what did you want to move to next then?
So I believe next thing on our agenda is, I'm just looking for my agenda, here we go, is the discussion that I wanted to add of community responsive and culturally focused programming. And I wanted to share some basically insights about, you know, what's transformed with the arts and culture program. We became arts and culture. What has that meant for us? So I have a little bit of information I wanted to share there, and then invite some of your feedback and thinking with me around how we want to continue to grow our program in directions that respond to community needs, that showcase the cultural diversity of Urbana, and that really, you know, speak to the inclusion and diversity that we want to see. So if that's all right, I've got some slides to show you. It's not too many, I promise. Ready for me to screen share? I'll do it. I'm gonna go right back to my other screen because they're right after this. At least they should be. There we are. Okay, so I wanted to just take some time to talk to you. We had talked about adding this as an item on the agenda, particularly I had wanted to. Last meeting, we had a lot of new business to get through, and I really felt that, you know, we had that meeting quite in the middle of what had become some pretty large civil unrest in the United States around systemic racism. And contextually, there's so much that our program does already, you know, that really works to elevate and respond to community needs that are arising and community conversations and real dialogues that are happening in real time. And then of course, I think there's many ways that we could do this work better. So I really just wanted to invite a conversation and to kind of help invite you to think with me about how we can move the program forward. So I wanted to share first some past examples of cultural programming we do. And actually just to contextualize this for a second, for anyone who's new to the arts programming, we do have some interns listening today in particular. They have heard this from me already, but we had been founded in 2008 as a public arts program. And in 2018, we revised our name and mission to become the Urbana Arts and Culture Program, with the intention of elevating cultural work in the community. And our mission says promoting and celebrating diversity and arts in the Urbana community, right? So we have this really specific mission as well. We've also seen an increase, I believe, in the composition of the diverse composition of our Arts Commission. I've really pushed in many of our programs to really encourage that we are sharing more cultural programming, that people who are, you know, also working with our program, including our arts commissioners, that you all bring different kinds of knowledge and competency and humility around culture. And I think that we really have a lot of wonderful kind of emerging ways in which the arts program is better. It continues to constantly be better set up to do this work more and more. So I want to show you some examples of what we've had as different cultural programming that we've done. For Young Artist Studio, this is not a comprehensive list, but I just want to share some of the things that we've seen in just the past 2 or 3 years. So with Young Artist Studio, we've done things like the Ballet Folklorico, Mexican folk dance, bilingual yoga, which was in English and Spanish, an African drum workshop, which was part of the CU Black and African Arts Festival, Capoeira Angola, the Madhubani Indian traditional art form. We also offered Japanese art of manga at our Young Artist Studio workshop. Some of our Artists of the Corridor exhibitions have included partnering with the New American Welcome Center and the CU Immigration Forum to do the Belongings exhibit on immigrant experiences, which is the one that invited local immigrants to tell the story of immigration, their own experiences through an item to be photographed from their home. So that was really interesting because the photo exhibit was of artifacts from houses and then stories that were hung side by side with them. And we actually were able to collaborate with Spurlock Museum for the first time and expand that exhibit into the museum. We also had an Immigrant Voices Story Slam that was in conjunction with that. We have currently on display, although not many people are able to see it with the city building, the Women Who Painted Women's History Month exhibit. Cultural celebrations that we had in the past year also include the Folia de Reis, Brazilian New Year program, as well as the St. Patrick's Day Irish Dance and Music celebration, both of whom had a combination of music and dance. Art at the Market, we did a National Immigrant Welcoming Week program, which had the Afro-Caribbean Jazz Collective. It had Jean-René Bellikitsa and Bomoyi. It had School for Designing Society, the Mobile Art Cart. And it really was an opportunity to celebrate and recognize and stand up for immigrants in the community. We also have our Open Scene Open Mic series. And for those of you who may not know, Open Scene began with a $50,000 grant from the National Endowment of the Arts. And it funded 4 weekend intensives, really prioritizing underrepresented teens, and also ended up, when the grant was done, becoming an Open Scene Open Mic series, which is what we have now. Obviously a bit put on hold with COVID, but what we were doing was having these open mics take place in different venues in Urbana, and many of them then had certain themes. So we had one that was a Black History Slam, kind of on the cusp of, you know, February, March, right around Black History Month, Women's History Month. We had an Immigrant Voices Story Slam as part of the, you know, Welcoming Week. We had a Survivor Story Slam that focused on survivors of violence. We had an Artist Impacted by Incarceration Story Slam and Poetry Slam. That program in particular also helps cultivate new venues, because what we do is we try to encourage collaborations with venues in Urbana that haven't perhaps had arts programs or concerts or things in their venue before, to help them think of, like, how could this bookstore be a music venue, or how could this place be a venue? And the goal with that is that, you know, when we're faced with not as many venues as we'd like to see, which is always the case, we're kind of cultivating new venues for the arts. New programs that are kind of emerging that you heard about were Artists Reimagine the World, the Great Art Doors. We're talking with Dance Music Therapy and the CU Black and African Arts Festival about a continuation of the Art of Afrofuturism series. And another sort of emerging thing is talking with the Urbana Free Library about some collaborations through like an artist lecture series where artists are talking about imagining futures, kind of like that teen exhibit is imagining as well through the arts. We've also obviously had a wide variety of cultural programming that we do through the grant program. And this is just to name a few, but we have things like the Interactive Powwow exhibition by Basiki Culture and Dance Company. We had a Native American art exhibition. The Dance Music Therapy 8-hour festivals that happen out at the Lake House are intergenerational, like basically, I mean, the feeling of a backyard barbecue, dance party that are just wonderfully inclusive. We've got the Capoeira Angola in the Schools program, Asia Fest, West African Drum and Dance Festival as a past recipient, CU Black and African Arts, the Matsuri Festival, Japan House. Celebrando Latinidad was a photo booth exhibit of photographing Latinx families. Colored Voices of the World came from our very own Gonzalo, which is a mural that's at Dr. Williams School, which really promotes diversity and inclusion. We have the Writers of Oya program that was really focused on cultivating teen girl writers, many of whom were, well, particularly Black teen girl writers. The Dance for Your Life program is a new funded program that's going to focus on cultivating spaces for LGBTQ folks in the community through venue partnerships. And then the Black Voices Dramatic Arts production, things like our Salsa Night, the She Spins Urbana DJ Camp for Young Black Girls is another program this summer. So with all these things in mind, I wanted to kind of share with you just a lot of the different kinds of programming we do. I wanted to ask you to think with me, and we don't have to have, you know, the conversation end today. I wanted this to be a continued conversation. But in what ways would you like to see more culturally specific programming and community responsive programming emerge from the arts program? And what I'd like to kind of invite you to think about is, you know, I'm always thinking particularly about like, who can we partner with that we haven't partnered with before? You know, what populations are we reaching and what populations are we perhaps not reaching yet? And what methods could we use to reach those populations? What needs are happening in the community that we could respond to pretty directly through our programming? These are all the kinds of questions that swirl around my head when I'm planning events. But I'd like to pause here and ask if there's any kinds of programming that you don't believe we're maybe yet doing or you'd like to see us grow when we think about the whole lineup of what we do. Go ahead, Frank.
As a retired special ed teacher, as I was looking through the different listing, I didn't really see anything that addressed the needs of people on the autism spectrum, or people with mobility challenges, people who have sensory challenges, and would like to see somehow openings for those populations. I think that's a real deficit that just popped out for me.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you. Other thoughts from folks who are listening?
Rachel, one of the things that I don't think I've seen us take up very often has been stuff in the hip hop community.
Yeah.
I know you probably know Rob K and all that he does with the Champagne Cypher series and all that kind of stuff, and through Canopy and whatnot. But it might be cool to see us do a little more engagement with bringing some of the local MCs and producers to showcase it at some of our events. I've just noticed they haven't had a lot of opportunities in some of the things because I would say, not that it's high culture that we focus on, but we certainly focus on super niche things, and I don't see that community getting focused on a lot. So that's my immediate reaction when I'm looking at all of those different programs and all of those different things that we've helped sponsor and the people we've put together. So just that's my initial reaction.
Yeah, I very much agree with you there. And the unfortunate thing too is the few ways that we have collaborated with the hip hop community, I feel like have also been some of the programs that have been canceled for the summer. So for instance, you know, we had a DJ for every single downtown get down planned. You know, we have DJs do the open scene open mics. So at least I think vast majority were hosted by a DJ. But also in terms of hip hop performance, absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly. I want to see more of that. I was really excited about She Spins Urbana, which is Janae Amatis's program that was funded this year. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate there. I did have a meeting this week with Dance Music Therapy talking about their grant program and some of the other kinds of collaborations they'd like to do. But there are so many, as you know, so many DJs, so many people in the hip hop community, so many performing artists that I'd really like to get more involved with some of those cypher type things and just other kinds of programs that have happened in the community. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, yeah.
Sure. So, well, anything you see coming up, if you're like, hey, could we interject something with that? Anytime, always feel free to reach out to me and I can help bounce ideas off of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Go ahead, Barbara.
I was looking, and the diversity of programming is amazing. But I was thinking that, of course, I was raised in a different, you know, in the classical world and the popular music on Broadway. And, you know, thinking about not leaving out that aspect because it is popular in the community, plus theater and dance. And even, you know, the puppeteers are popular and collaborations between different groups together. We can encourage collaborations.
Absolutely. And, you know, to be honest, I think that I continually bring up, my students have heard me say this, but it's like I continually bring up that I think we don't do very much in the realm of supporting classical music, and we don't do very much in the realm of supporting theater. And of course, inclusive of that is musical theater and everything else. But we don't have very many theater programs at all. So I also have another slide where I'm going to talk to you about some of the emerging ideas I have as well over on some responding to some of these things. But there is such a need to kind of encapsulate, you know, all that the arts is. And, you know, Jared, too, and thinking about that, that bifurcation between like what is called high arts and like what is called sort of street arts, or like, you know, whatever it is, highbrow, lowbrow, all the things. Man, I want to disrupt the crap out of that. I think we need, like, you know, the symphony orchestra playing to street artists, or like, you know, we need to really disrupt, like, you know, what we think those divisions are, because I think our arts program can really set a tone for what's possible.
Well, I think it's really important to have those collaborations because you can have more interesting programming that way.
Absolutely.
I guarantee I know MCs who would be down to rap over some classic music.
Oh my gosh, I know.
There are people here who would totally be into that.
Yeah.
I've done dance programs and programs with puppeteers, and they're amazingly effective, and the public likes them. As a matter of fact, I was able to raise quite a bit of money this year and I can't even get into the schools now to do the programs created, but I know people seem to enjoy them. So
yeah,
I think there's
a lot of opportunity there, and I also feel personally just very jazzed about weird collaborations, unexpected collaborations that that disrupt a lot of those notions of like these are not art forms that go together. Other things coming up for folks as you're thinking about how we do inclusive programming?
I was just thinking ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
I know, I mean, hopefully this won't be a huge big deal here in Champaign-Urbana, but I know coming into the fall, there's going to be a lot of potential homelessness with people's rents coming due and lack of work the last few months. So I'm not sure how we could work to reach students and families with homelessness, but I wonder if that could be a real meaningful way to connect an underserved community, but also find people who may not already have a meaningful place to participate.
Absolutely. And I'll share with you like a couple of the ways that that's come up so far. So we did, of course, do an open scene at Cunningham Township that served a lot of their the people that they work with, and that in particular are folks often facing homelessness. We did at that time, we were able to have Piatto provide free meals to everyone who attended. And at the Art Amble, the township was providing free meals to people who were there who attended as well as, you know, the emerging work of Solidarity Gardens that you may have heard about. So this is, you know, Township is doing wonderful work with the Channing Murray Foundation for what is called the Bucket Brigade, and this is giving free meals to people who are food insecure right now in Urbana, and I think even some in Champaign. And it's very volunteer run. A lot of people volunteering who are also artists and people who are involved in lots of different programs. We also have, you know, Solidarity Gardens emerging as a collaboration between Township, between the library, park districts, so many organizations working together with neighbors to create opportunities for neighbors to grow food that can give back direct to housing and food insecure families. So it's partnering too with the Bucket Brigade and other things like that. I've talked to artists already about how the Bucket Brigade represents a way to perhaps share art, you know, that there might be an opportunity for people who are facing homelessness and receiving food could also receive something that gives them the, you know, the hope and the resilience that art gives us, right? So we're kind of exploring that. And I've been in talks with Dance Music Therapy, who is also thinking about like, how can we give back directly to the community? I think artists are really eager, you know, to find ways to give back where they can. If they're not the ones experiencing it, it's the same way with all of us in the community. When we're not the ones experiencing it, we're the ones in the position to give back, you know, and when we are the ones like experiencing it, we're thankful that we have those networks of mutual support. So I think, you know, Janelle, to your point, there's lots of ways that we could maybe aid to some of those existing programs. When we did the Great Outdoors, I brought up Solidarity Gardens in particular on that committee. And I was like, I think, you know, having the community gardens as two of the locations really shows that, you know, art needs to be in places where that mutual aid, that mutual support is happening for the community. That's where my head is. And I think that, you know, doing things that very directly respond to homelessness through the arts will also be things like providing arts experiences in ways that are free, accessible, and welcoming of people who also may need to attend because they need a free meal and the free meal comes with the event or something like that, you know? So I'm thinking a lot that direction, but I would love to encourage any ideas that all of you have about, you know, people to partner with. Like we've worked a little bit with See You at Home. We've worked a little bit like with Cunningham Township, but there's so much room for doing this work better. And I'm really open to hearing your ideas. I used to work quite a bit with the shelters in particular because my background's in domestic violence advocacy before this position. So I have, I used to organize an event called Peace Jam that used to be at Lincoln Square Mall with a lot of women who had been made homeless through domestic violence. And there's a lot of eagerness around artists to support you know, those kinds of efforts too. Any other thoughts from folks? Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? It really is just Gonzalo. Gonzalo, you got any thoughts for us?
Yeah, so yeah, I wanted just to say that, sometimes, yeah, I thinking about ways to engage like newcomers to the town, and how having like a program for specific for people that are arriving for the first time here, and introduce them to the kind of programs, and because sometimes in my personal experience as well, we face a little uncertainty of the things we can find or the resources we have or so.
Absolutely.
And because it's this space is so that the population here is so movable, so just thinking about that, so probably in something to help kind of a bridge for integrating people to the community.
Absolutely. And you have so much experience with this, Gonzalo, because I think a lot of your programs come to mind when I think about people doing programs specifically for international families, for immigrant families, for people coming and staying even for a short period of time. You know, how do we make them feel welcome? How are they part of the community? And how do we meet them in the ways that we need to meet them? You know, like having things in multiple languages, like talking about all those needs. That's why I'm feeling, you know, in a way very lucky that right now we have the support of the students to do some translation. And of course, like, I'm really trying to do the checks and balances around that. Like, somebody translates, another native speaker looks at it before it goes live. We have these, because I don't speak all those languages. But we are, you know, we're at a deficit of not having that capability year round usually with the program, and being able to kind of get things in as much translated right now as we can, I think is one step. Forming a lot of intentional relationships with organizations that very directly serve, like I know you've worked a bit with Orchard Downs. I'm connected and worked a bit with Orchard Downs in the past, and I've talked to them about our arts programs. But I think just like reaching into the areas that we know people are and making sure that we're also responding, you know, in ways that are programmatic, but also fulfilling some sort of unmet need, right, that might exist in the community.
But also probably connecting with groups like, for example, the international student group for different countries. Probably that could be also a good point of connection and a potential space for integrating the programs with people coming to.
It is, and one of the things I'm mourning is another event that was canceled due to COVID was our Culture Fest event. And Culture Fest was set to include registered student organizations from some of the cultural student organizations that exist on campus. It was going to, you know, have B-boys at it, Jared. It was going to have DJs at it. I mean, we were going to have lots of different cultural representation from lots of different places and lots of different ethnic and cultural groups that live here. And I was so excited about it. So we will return to it. You know, it's going to come back, and, you know, maybe should come back in a different iteration that would allow it to have even a bigger life than it was going to have before. But I really want to see more, you know, increased cultural programming. One thing I do have the WeCU students doing is creating a contact list right now of updated arts and culture listings of the U of I, because it turns over, as you know, every year. It's like always new people in charge and new contacts for all the student groups. So we're trying to gather that information, so going into fall, we know how to contact and set up arrangements for collaboration. Yeah. All right, well, thanks everyone. I want to share with you some of the things that are sort of percolating so that you know things that could be on the horizon and how I'm thinking about things. So one thing, obviously I feel very strongly about teen leadership development. I think that we don't do enough specifically for teens. I bemoan that through my own doing, I created an intergenerational open mic night out of the open scene. And now the struggle, of course, is that when you make it more intergenerational, the teens kind of disappear and float away. And actually, Celia, who's on our call, our intern here, did a wonderful thing this week of putting together kind of an initial guide for thinking about how to reach teens better through programs. And Celia, first off, if you're listening, you did a wonderful job with that. And I have already talked it up in other meetings I've been in this week, but I'm going to be sharing that with other partners because Celia both kind of thought back to her own experiences as she, you know, is a teen, but also thinking about some research that she's seen and pulled together some research about, you know, what is it that is effective for reaching that population. So I really want to create conditions in which teens are getting like showcase opportunities, you know, exhibition opportunities, paid opportunities where possible, but also like just having leadership over how events that are designed for them look. So really designing with them. And one thing that we funded this year that is really in that spirit that I love is the project of the Urbana Free Library and Fab Lab. So we funded a project to create teen art, but it involves the creation of a teen art council. And so the council will oversee the project itself, and it's overseen by teens, which I love. I'm also really interested in continuing to build Black and Indigenous people of color specific artist opportunities. So one thing that has been kind of a percolating conversation is, you may know that I've been trying to work with the university to potentially develop a opportunity for either a course or a internship opportunity, or even like a work study, field placement type class for people in the arts. Well, that has not entirely come together yet, but I've talked to the theater department, the art and design department, and the dance department about that, and that just hasn't quite come together. But I'm starting now to have that conversation with our cultural and ethnic studies departments on campus to focus more on the cultural side of what we do, but still, you know, really focusing on arts and creative expression. So we're talking possibly about building a fellows program that would have maybe some built-in opportunities that utilize and leverage our existing programs to give the fellows things that they could be, you know, particularly influencing or working on over the course of a semester or even an academic year. I'm also really interested in programs for elder populations. I think that that's another population that we don't do enough for, and particularly it's been on my heart and mind that the elder populations, especially living in residential care facilities, are absolutely cut off right now, have not had visitors since March, and in that way, I do have, Madeline's on our call, and Madeline is one of our interns who this week reached out to all of our assisted living and residential care facilities for me to gather up information about who currently is serving in the role of assisted living activities director and would be the person to collaborate on events, because we want to have a conversation about like what particular programming we could do for that population. And maybe do it through Zoom, or, you know, and that could be a way that we also give musicians or even, you know, DJs or other people, you know, opportunities to kind of zoom in to different locations. I also want to share with you that before Open Scene had some disruptions, and I will say it wasn't simply COVID. You may know that last year represented a time for the Independent Media Center, our primary partner on Open Scene, had a transition time where they didn't have an executive director, and that really caused us to kind of just put that program on hold, because I didn't want to move forward too much without them. I really love that partnership. But before we had put it on hold, we had a lot of things kind of percolating. We wanted to do an Artist with Disability Slam, a Latinx artist showcase. We talked about a multilingual showcase in particular, like focusing on actually having it be in multiple languages. And if we did, you know, one focused on artists with disabilities, we had talked a little bit with Community Choices about collaborating around that one, and probably would involve DRES and PACE and some of our other community organizations. When we talked about the Latinx Artist Showcase, we were talking about putting it possibly at Rick's Bakery. So we had all these things percolating that we will return to, like they will happen, but they've been a little bit on hold. Another thing that we had been talking about for December, and it just wound up that we kind of have it on hold for the moment, was that our Young Artist Studio for that month would be sort of focused on neurodivergent, or as Frank, you had mentioned, sensory sensitive children. So we know that some of the arts-based things that we do might not be right for students on the autism spectrum or who otherwise have like sensory sensitivities. So we were going to build a program that was specific for those children, but also maybe think about that for adult programming, for teen programming, and then of course, you know, expand from one time to like, how do we think about all of our programs as somehow inclusive of people who might have sensory sensitivities. I see that emerging as, you know, even though I agree absolutely 100% with Frank of like, disability is an area of inclusion that is so rarely meaningfully discussed in events and programming. At the same time, I am, I guess, I see glimmers of hope in things like movie theaters, right? You know, before shelter in place, like movie theaters doing things like sensory sensitive screenings where the lights would be up and the sounds are kind of a little bit reduced as the film, you know, things like that. I think we can easily figure out ways that our programs to speak to those specific needs. And then I'm always trying to think about mentorship programs as a place too, where we can have like young people and people of, and established artists maybe kind of collaborate. But that's a little bit like where my head is right now. I'm working with the library to kind of develop a lecture series potentially of artists sharing their visions for, you know, other worlds that are possible than the world that we have, right? When we talk about things that are hard or challenges we face or social issues in front of us, like how artists are responding to those needs. I want to create a lecture series where artists are sharing their ideas but using their art to do so. And so we're kind of thinking through that right now too. And I think there's just a lot of opportunities for us to do more strategically with partners. But that's a little bit where my head is for the moment. And the last question I wanted to ask you, and this is my last slide, promise, is more of a question of assessment. So like when we're thinking about diversity inclusion, we're thinking about culturally responsive programming, which by the way, to think about community responsive programming, I think that's also an area that we don't necessarily do much in, which means to say that we don't always have programs that can respond in the moment to something that happens in the community, right? Like if there's, I don't know, some, let's say like environmental catastrophe happens in the community, you know, goodness, we hope it doesn't, but like, let's say something like that happened, how ready is our program to like do an event or something that like brings the community together to do some reparative effort that's in the arts, right? Or something that would respond right in the moment. I don't know that, I think a lot of institutions have a hard time doing community responsive programming because we plan our events like well in advance. And sometimes we even put out beautiful, not us, but some places put out well-funded, beautifully glossy calendars of what they're doing. And it's really hard to just like do something, you know, in a few days when a need has arisen. But that's a different, you know, conversation. What I am interested in asking you is, how should we measure how well our program offers diverse, inclusive, or community responsive programming? What would you suggest are some of the things that we use to assess how well we're doing? Oh, hold on, Frank.
Well, those kind of metrics are really hard because you don't want to just do a body count.
Yeah, you don't want to count heads. And that's what we used to go over all the time at the cultural centers where I worked. It's like, it's not a good measurement.
Well, the feedback afterwards from an event too, probably indication if people want more information and they'd like to see it again, that's going to be helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
I think just the number of partnerships we have and how diverse those are, I think is one way to measure it.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll share with you all that one interesting thing that has been happening now for a while is that our former arts commissioner, Kevin Hamilton, who is now a big wig over at the School of Art and Design, he's been reaching out to people like myself and Kelly White and others who work with arts agencies locally to figure out better ways that he and an initiative through the university could assess the impact of the arts. And I actually would love to share with him some of the conversation we've had today. So I'll definitely alert him to this recording, because I think too, we want to assess these kinds of questions too. And I talked to him a little bit about that when we've met. But that's been a huge focus of that conversation too. And we've had a couple Zoom meetings since we went in, like in the past month as well. And I haven't brought it up in our staff meeting, but that, our staff report, but that's something that has also been going on, of just talking about what kinds of assessment would be valuable to us. And I think we want to know who we're reaching, you know.
As far as doing responsive stuff, Rachel, I think that's probably hard to draw a metric other than our own accountability to seeing events happen, and then later saying, shoot, I wish we would have done something in response to that. And, you know, looking at that maybe 6 months into the year, and because you can't predict, you know, events that are going to happen that are, you know, that you're describing. You don't know when those things are going to pop up. So really the only way is to say, are we prepared for something? Maybe do some brainstorming to imagine something, and have a small team of people prepared to say something or do something, or, you know, imagine a scenario and say, okay, well, hey, we've got this group of 6 people who are prepared to, you know, get down on planning something within a 24 to 48 hour period. And then just, you know, we, you know, every 6 months can be like, hey, here's a thing that happens. We weren't prepared for that. How do we get prepared for something like that next time?
Yeah. And I think it, you know, kind of to the question of partnerships too, I think that really does end up being an indicator too of how ready we are to respond to things, how well we understand what is coming up from different segments of the community. And so I think that's usually where I start, is sort of thinking about relationships and like, where do we need to expand who we're regularly partnering with, or, you know, how can we support the work of other organizations that are doing great community responsive work through the resources that we have, which are limited, right? But I think that is a place where I want to think more. In some ways, I felt pretty enabled to a degree to, like, if somebody comes with an idea and they need some support and I can offer them like guidance or in-kind support, or maybe, hey, we have an open scene coming up and we don't have a theme for it. Do you want to make this a theme? You know, like there's ways that we can leverage our existing programs for some of the things that people may want to do. But a previous conversation we had when we were doing our visioning session, we talked about things like, you know, I know I shared like one of the things that I wish we could be in a position to do is do very like direct work around things when they arise. Like if there's a vandalism of a mural, like what role can the Arts and Culture Commission and Program play in like healing through that experience? Like, you know, and offering something maybe more restorative or transformative that infuses the arts into how the community responds to things like that, right? So I think those are some questions that are kind of percolating, is like, how can we continue to partner in ways that show that the arts are a huge modality for like healing, for connection, for, you know, everything that the arts can be.
Well, it's not uncommon in the past that symphony orchestras and choirs, for example, will always immediately respond to in a situation like that. I can think back even with, in my case, I play for a lot of funerals, and when someone dies, you have to put, and they have very specific needs, and they want music that works to give them solace. And so we get used to putting together programs at the last minute, or when I ran a music series for many years, and I had to come up with a weekly program, and then somebody would cancel. You have to come up with something right away. But part of the problem now is we aren't allowed to do that kind of programming and have that many people together anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it'll change, but we have to figure out more creative ways right now to do what we probably would have just immediately said, oh, sure, we can do that.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity at the same time. I think that like the virtual things also allow us to collaborate across a distance that we normally might not collaborate, depending. But I'm hearing some different ideas from all of you as far as like how we might measure these things, areas that of you know, diversity in our population that we want to make sure we're reaching. And I'll continue to kind of like make sure that this is a conversation that we can have. And as you're thinking of things, seeing places you'd like to see us partner with, or seeing initiatives you wish that we were participating in somehow or supporting somehow, or even, you know, thinking of new programming ideas or things that you'd like us to pursue, send them to me. Please feel free to email me, to ask for a meeting, and to talk to me about some of your ideas. And that's all I have on this particular topic, unless anybody else wants to chime in.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to say that, yeah, just considering, for example, target population when proposals for projects are received. So in order to have a balance, we can maybe decide on the, yeah, have a little balance on the cultural and ethnic groups that are participating, also of the target population that are is focused on this project. So it would be a good way for having a little more probably difference.
And Gonzalo, forgive me, because like the computer did a thing. What was the way that you were suggesting? Like having some of a proposal?
So when people, when we are selecting projects, so have like a balance for the target population that the projects are targeting, or so, and maybe have one of the requirements have a section asking for the specific cultural or ethnic groups that each program is more focused on. So yeah, probably, I don't know.
Yeah, and we do have that question kind of on our grant applications that we added this past year. Actually, we have revised the application to have a specific question, but we should take a look at that question together and see if you don't have suggestions, all of you, about how you would like that worded, or if it looks exactly, it captures kind of that sentiment. And I think another thing, Gonzalo, is like, for me, is when we're doing work around maybe that aims to provide a culturally specific program, you know, that we're working then with organizations in partnership that serve that population already very directly, you know, because that will be just a way to ensure that there are people at the table in the planning process who have expertise and knowledge and insight into how best to support that population, you know. So that's, I mean, I never like to do things in isolation, so you'll notice that like every single one of our events has some sort of partner on it. But the annual report that I gave you all had a, probably still not comprehensive, but as much as I could glean, like every organization we'd partnered with in the last year, or I think it was a year and a half. And you can see all the different ones, and I'll resend that if I can dig it up here, because it also shows you a little bit who we've partnered with so far. So you can maybe look and think about, like, you know, with me, who would you like to partner with more? And I will, you know, confess that coming from the university, I spent a lot of the last, you know, I'm in my 3rd year in this position, and my first couple of years, I was really focused on reorienting myself to working very directly with the city, with community organizations, with sort of non-campus organizations, to be honest. And now I feel like I'm in that position of like turning slightly to also be working more with some of the partners I used to work with every day, like back at the university. And bringing now those groups that I know very well in the community and the groups I know at the university together, if they aren't already, right? And really trying to get us all to be working collaboratively, because I think that the city and the university need to be working really collaboratively together too. Yeah. Okay, I've probably super tuckered you out, but I love that conversation. This is I think the heart of, you know, what the arts can do and what the arts ought to be doing. So I know it was a longer conversation, but I really wanted to just tell you I appreciate it, and I don't want it to end here. So I encourage you to email me, and we'll keep coming back to this and talking and assessing our programs, and know that, like, I deeply value your feedback. I want you to tell me if you think there's an area of work that we are not doing well in, or populations we're not meeting, and your ideas for how we meet them better. You know, I really want to hear all of that. So please know my email inbox is open.
Okay, well, I think we've had a great discussion here. This has been really good. So I think that's about it. I don't see there's any new business. Therefore, we can adjourn now.